Welcome to Root Words, a podcast that explores agriculture and cooking's role in connecting us to our landscape and our communities. I'm Stephen Abitel. Root Words is a collaboration between Vermont Farmers Food Center, Shrewsbury Agricultural Education and Arts Foundation, and many other community members. The project began in 2017 and was made possible by support from the National Endowment for the Humanities, as well as from this community. Throughout this podcast, you're going to be hearing stories from people around the Rutland County region in the heart of Vermont, a region rich in agriculture, family farms, a region that's a pastoral working landscape. These stories are going to be each little windows into what a regional food system really looks like on the community level. We're excited to introduce you to some passionate folks working with the land and with food and bringing communities together. So please pull up a chair and enjoy. Food sovereignty is basically when a person or a people have agency over their foodways. Many people today do not have this agency, including Vermont's indigenous communities. We heard from Chief Don Stevens of the Nulhegan Band of the Abenaki in episode 10, Indigenous Food Sovereignty in Vermont, about his three-pronged approach to creating more food security for Abenaki citizens.
Well, first let me go back to Nulhegan found a need to feed their people because we have a lot of health disparities, a lot of chronic diseases, and a lot of our people have low income and they have to choose whether they need healthy foods or if they, have to buy medicine or electricity or, fuel during the winter. So just pure economics, if you have limited food, sometimes you buy the cheaper stuff, which is not always healthy for you. So one of our goals as chief and the Nulhegan and the tribe was to help reduce those health disparities by producing high quality food that our ancestors once ate, bringing those ancient seed banks from a traditional cultural standpoint so we could give to our citizens to grow on their own, but also grow them in mass quantities. So not only do we could protect our seed bank so we didn't lose our seeds, but also to take that produce and feed our people throughout the winter, and then they could grow their own during the summer. So that was providing healthy, nutritious food and getting them reconnected back to the food sources.
Currently, we are not at the food sovereignty level yet. I call it food security because since we don't have our own land except for 65 acres of forest land, we don't have the acreage to grow crops on our own land. So I call it food security because we rely on others who hold the deeds to those lands to help us grow our crops, raise our bison and beef, and to provide us access to collect natural foods and medicines.
And so what are some of the ways that you're working towards food sovereignty?
Well, I took a three-pronged approach along with our tribe. First, to give us access to the lands that our ancestors once had, to be able to collect natural foods, medicines, and artistry material. The second prong approach was working with people like the colleges to be a seed bank, to grow our crops and distribute the produce that was achieved from those seed bank growing opportunities, and provide that food to our people while educating the students. Along with that garden project was also working with Rooted in Vermont and NOFA, who we started the Abenaki Land Link project with, that has started out with about 15 growers that helped us grow food and save the seeds. But also we have expanded to about 40 people this year to grow those. And last year, I think we produced around 700 pounds of squash, a few hundred pounds of beans, and some few hundred pounds of cornmeal. And I expect that number to rise drastically with the increase of with other people helping to grow. The third and last approach was to raise bison and beef We have a bison herd in Shoreham, Vermont. We have about 24 bison, and we cull them periodically to provide our the meat to our citizens, along with beef as needed. So people have the beef, they have the garden products, and they have the natural access to food. So there's a trifecta approach.
For Abenaki people today, growing and distributing culturally relevant and healthy food is challenging because of the limited access to tribal lands. Chief Don Stevens and others have addressed this difficulty by cultivating partnerships with generous land stewards and organizations like Nofa Vermont, the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont. In episode 11, we heard about the work of Seeds of Renewal and Alnobaiwi, Abenaki-led programs that bridge traditional and contemporary foodways. Many seeds from the Seeds of Renewal make it into tribal gardens and Abenaki Land Link gardens across the state, gardens and growers that are coordinated by Nofa Vermont. On this episode, we get out into the field and hear about growing Abenaki foods in Vermont, while we connect again with Chief Don Stevens and with Zia Luce of Nofa Vermont.
I am the Events and Engagement Coordinator. So I plan our summer workshops, our winter conference, our pizza socials with our mobile pizza oven, and I'm also tasked with coordinating the growers for the Abenaki Land Link project.
On a beautiful early autumn day this September, I traveled to the Abenaki Land Link Harvest Festival hosted by Alnobaiwi, NOFA, and the VYCC farm in Richmond. The Harvest Festival is an important part of the Abenaki agricultural calendar, and this event created a space for Abenaki people to gather and celebrate, and for the general public to learn more about Abenaki culture and foodways.
Kwekwe Nidonba. Hello, friends. I'm Chief Don Stevens of the Nulhegan Band of the Coosac, Abenaki Nation. I'd like to welcome you here to our harvest celebration. About 4 years ago, we started working with Sterling College and we wanted to work with the Seeds of Renewal program to get our ancient seeds back and to grow those and provide those seeds and the produce to our citizens so they would eat something that our ancestors ate and our bodies were used to it. So 4 years ago, we started with Sterling College to do that seed bank program and started growing crops. And the first year was just to really gather the seeds. And then the second year, we started to produce more food, and we started educating the Sterling College students about our crops, what they meant, and also distributing the seeds and also the produce to our citizens, so they had something to eat over the winter. And traditionally, at the end of the year, we would have a harvest celebration. We would all gather after and help produce our foods, basically process them for the winter. And it's our types of corn, the Callis Flint corns and the Coassuck corn. And there's those are little ones that are unique to us in Vermont. So part of that harvest was to not only thank Mother Earth, the ancestors and the spirits who helped us grow the food, not only thank them for providing that food for us, we would also take the time to get together before the long winter hit to be able to share the foods and put it up, like I said, to process it so we had something to eat. It is our time of celebration, our time of gathering, and we just wanted to provide Alnobaiwi that's here today, is going to do the corn celebration.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Morgan Lamphere. We are from the group Alnobaiwi. We're a nonprofit that's dedicated to preserving Abenaki culture and traditions. Our focus of our mission is to learn amongst our culture and share that within our culture and with the greater community. The way we can actually usually continue to do that is by partnering with great folks like NOFA And the location today, the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, and with Nulhegan and Alnobaiwi. We have members from all 4 different Vermont Abenaki tribes: Missisquoi, Nulhegan, Elnu, and Coas. And we try to be a safe place for folks to come and to learn and share. And that's how we can truly kind of heal, by coming together. And the way we do that is often we don't have federal or state funding that's, got any continuity. So through programs and partners like this actually helps our community to come together for these type of events. So partners like you are essential, and we thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Don Stevens, Chief of the Nulhegan Band of the Coosac, Abenaki Nation, and this is part of our harvest celebration that everybody would do every year as Native people. As we grew our crops and we would want to, the harvest came due, we would gather together and collect our bounty, and then we would come to a thing called a rendezvous, where we would come and we would share not only our crops together and trade for things that we didn't have or things we had too much. So that way everybody had kind of equal portions of what they needed for the winter. And then we would all produce those, package them, and then we would have a big old harvest festival or celebration, which other people might look at as Thanksgiving. But we would do it after the harvest, and then we would get together and we would talk, we would have a celebration, we would dance, we would tell our stories about how corn and tobacco came to us, and we'd do our dance about acting it out for the kids to show them how to relate to what our food sources are, and then we would do the song. And that's what we did here today at NOFA and the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, who's hosting this here today, and they work with all of our growers. We went from 15 growers to 40 this year, and they help produce our food and helps feed our people all winter, and in turn we help with education.
In Nofa Vermont's social justice statement of intention, the organization acknowledges their roots, sprouting from the white-led Back to the Land movement of Vermont. Here's a quote from their statement. Quote, "Nofa Vermont has not always been welcoming to people of color, as well as people of non-dominant religions, cultures, genders, and sexual backgrounds and identities. We have heard directly from partners that some of our gatherings have felt overwhelmingly white and not relevant or representative of the full spectrum of people interested in farming for people, land, and justice. We appreciate and hear this feedback and seek to do better. We seek to work beyond inclusion, to actively dismantle the idea that this is somehow Nofa Vermont's movement to welcome people too. We are unlearning our ownership of this work and working to recognize and align with the global farming movements for people and land, largely led by people of color, women, and other often marginalized groups." End quote. Nofa Vermont's internal reckoning and refocusing is challenging and ongoing work for staff. When I met Zia Luce, she was new to Nofa and the Abenaki partnerships, and she was finding her way as a non-Indigenous person, rising to support Abenaki people while channeling the resources and relative position of power afforded by her role.
I'm Zia Luce. I work for Nofa Vermont, which is the Northeast Organic Farming Association. I am the events and engagement coordinator. So I plan our summer workshops, our winter conference, our pizza socials with our mobile pizza oven, and I'm also tasked with coordinating the growers for the Abenaki Land Link project. So last year was the pilot year. This is the second year. It's really grown. We plan to continue. People were asking me today, how do I sign up to grow next year? So we have a list going. And so NOFA does a whole range of things. We have our organic certification side and a whole bunch of other programs around food access, farmers markets, direct markets. So this fits in really well. It was first word of mouth at the winter conference when it was in person. So growers signed up that way to grow as part of the Abenaki Land Link project. And something like this, they find out, more and more people find out about it. So it's using our networks and grower networks and resources to work with another partner. It's all about creating relationships, sharing people's time, resources, skills, and land to provide food that Chief Don Stevens distributes. Almost 40 this year, high 30s, and there's a really good handful of commercial farms who are larger, like Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, the Intervale Center, who can grow a really good quantity. And then the rest are smaller gardeners and homesteaders that maybe received 5 squash seeds in the mail, several beans and corn, depending on how much space they had. But if your plant does well with 5 squash seeds, you have 20, 30 squash that potentially come out of that. So, yeah.
And what are you hearing for some of the array of reasons why folks are finding you and signing up?
Definitely an array, like you said, of wanting to help, wanting to be part of this, knowing they have the land and the resources and the Abenaki don't. And yeah, if someone just came up to me and said, yeah, we just moved to Vermont and we have, 3/4 of an acre and it's all grass and we want to grow things, including for this program. They just have the space, they hear the need, they have the skills, they want to be a part of it. It's a very busy vibe at the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps farm. They run a program with Corps members that are learning, and I visited their field where they're growing the Abenaki Land Link crops 3-4 weeks ago, I suppose. So nearing the end of the season, which is hard. It's not beautiful looking anymore. It's not green and lovely, but so things are starting to dry up and die. The Algonquin squash is turning orange, and the corns, so they did a kind of 3 sisters, right? So the corn is growing up. You can peel back the ears and see that it's drying. The husks are getting brown and dry. And then the beans are just snaking their way through everything. And we're still quite green at that point, but starting to dry. So both the corn and beans, it's best if they dry on the stalk, on the vine, outside, if the weather permits it, and then they can finish drying inside. But so Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, their farm, they had a plot where they were growing all 3 together. The Abenaki Land Link plot of land where they were growing the crops is just part of what they do. So they have a beautiful, wonderful farm stand, an array of beautiful crops. And the plot of land for the Abenaki Land Link crops was right next to their greenhouse. So the growers are in various stages of harvesting. I'm hearing back from them right now. What are we at the end of September? Some of them are saying, no, my beans are still a little bit green. They still need more growing and drying time. And other folks have already dropped off their crops. So we're in that few weeks of it's harvest season for these crops. And we'll bring everything together, weigh it. So a pre-processing weight just to know what was grown this year. And then throughout the month of October, Chief Don Stevens is going to distribute the Algonquin squash fresh. And then whatever hasn't been distributed, November 6th, we have a processing day already scheduled where we'll chop and freeze the squash. And then at that time, the beans and corn should also be dry enough to shell the beans and decob the corn, to grind the corn, store it as cornmeal, bag up the beans, and then that all gets distributed throughout the winter.
What do you think is the importance of this program and the Land Link specifically within like the constellation of NOFAs? Like what's the kind of role it's holding within NOFA's many roles?
Right. I think for NOFA, it's the relationship building. It's part of our mission, socially just food system, and that includes everyone who lives in Vermont. And like Chief Don Stevens said earlier today at this event, they often get forgotten. It's about uplifting and reaching everyone. If we're going to talk about local food, I don't know what's more local than the food that the folks who have been here for years and years and years originally grew and have saved the seed from, so that we can all be a part of growing that.
What do you think is, for you, what is the role of food and farming and agriculture in like connecting communities?
I feel like food is the common denominator. We all eat, and food is a necessity, and good food should be a necessity, and it's not something that our society as a whole values. It's something that I do, and I feel very strongly about it, which is why I do the work that I do and work for a nonprofit that's what they're promoting. And we have programs to make sure that we reach everyone, that everyone has access to good food, organic, local food.
And do you feel that the Abenaki have been left out of that, everyone, in the past?
It sounds like it. Yes. Yeah, for me personally, I feel a little bit hesitant. Who am I to be playing such a large role? As an organization, though, we're honored to be part of this project. I'm learning a lot and have a lot to learn, and want to help where I can help and want to be most useful where I can be the most useful. So being on Zoom calls, here we are in the pandemic, with Chief Don Stevens and Joe Bosson and others to put together this event, I was absolutely that's the wrong word, but wanting them to take the lead of what they wanted this event to look like. I'm in the back seat, coordinating, helping, emailing, communicating with the growers, just doing the facilitating part. I think that's where a nonprofit comes in with those kind of skills to support. What is it that they're doing, or what do they want to do? Okay, great. We're a strong partner on board to help you meet those goals.
Support from NOFA, as well as Rooted in Vermont, has helped the Abenaki rebuild their native cultivar seed bank, and has helped other Vermont communities connect with and better understand Abenaki foodways. Partner support from Abenaki Land Link growers around the state and folks like Zia at NOFA helps Chief Don Stevens focus on the big goals for the Nulhegan.
I think the ultimate goal is to have enough food that we have plenty of seed banks, that we never lose our crops again, our cultural historical crops. That is one goal. Another goal is that have more food than we can use, so then we can start helping to feed other people that are in need, like, other minority populations or hungry, people who are hungry. And I think lastly would be to create a product that we could then put on a market, so it could be a healthy food source, but it would be unique to our tribe, that we could use some of the proceeds to help continue this program to make it self-sustaining. Because we only rely on donations and grants, we don't have a renewable income, so this program could go away tomorrow if our growers stop doing it. So we need my ultimate goal is to get our own land where we can grow our own food, so we can never be removed from that, and we're not always dependent on others. But right now our primary source of doing this is with other growers and helping us. And the reason why we need so many growers is because if one stops, it doesn't kill the whole program, that we have strength in numbers where as people come in and out of the program, we still have a viable food source for our people. So self-sustainability, food sovereignty. We have food security now because it's not our land, but food sovereignty where we get to grow our own and make our own way. That's the ultimate goal, and I hope to get there someday. It shows that we continue to be a living culture, that we continue to adapt, and we continue to overcome adversity and thrive. It's not something we are doing because it was our ancestors. Like, it's not going through the motion because it's history. We're doing it because we're moving forward, and we are in tomorrow's history. We are making history today for our children tomorrow.
A lot of folks are rebuilding this history, growing, processing, and distributing Abenaki Land Link crops. And we'll hear from more of them next time on Root Words. This episode was produced by Stephen Abitel. Special thanks to Chief Don Stevens, Zia Luce, and all the Abenaki Land Link growers across the state. To learn more, check out Nofa Vermont's Agricultural Literacy Week YouTube video on the Abenaki Land Link project, or at NOFA-VT.org. Our musical themes are by the Salt Ash Serenaders. We are a project of the Vermont Farmers Food Center and SAGE. Thank you all for listening and for being a part of our local food system. We'll catch you next time on Root Words.